Now, how do we define a class? Well, the way we're going to do it is we're going to come over here to BlueJ. We're going to type in new class, and you're going to give the class a name. And in our case, we're going to call it character. Okay? Because this class is going to describe a set of variables that describe a character in the game. Right? Let's say hero 1, hero 2, and hero 3. So you're going to hit OK, and it's going to create a file for you. Right? It's going to create a class here called character. Let's go ahead and start with the big three, what I call the big three. And what are the big three? They are instance variables, the zero argument constructor, and the argument constructor. So these are the constructors, and the toString method. So we have the instance variables, first one of the big three, the constructors, the second of the big three, and the toString method, the third of the big three. Now, what are the instance variables? An instance is a synonym for object. All right? So we call it the object's variables, or the instance variables. The variables that are created when you create an object of type character. Okay? So what are instance variables? They are the set of variables that are created when you create an object of type character. What's the zero argument constructor? It is a method that creates a default object. And default means these variables are going to contain default values of 0 and empty string. The argument constructor creates user-defined object, which means the instance variables are set to values that you want to set them to, right? Namely Daniel, energy 100, and attack 7. What's the toString method? It returns a string that contains the values of the instance variables of an object. Okay, so let's go ahead and start by creating the instance variables. We do it like this. We say private string name. Notice here that we're just creating the variables. We are not initializing them to any values. So we say energy, semicolon, private int attack. All right. So we've defined our instance variables. These are the variables that are going to be created when you create an object of type character using this class, using this blueprint for how to create an object. Next, we have our zero argument constructor, and that's created saying public, capital character, two parentheses, and two brackets. Okay. In the zero argument constructor, we are going to set these variables to default values. All right, namely strings are set to empty string, and numerical values are set to 0. So we're going to say name is equal to empty string, energy is equal to 0, and attack is equal to 0. This here would create a default object whose instance variables are set to default values. Next, we have our argument constructor, which is very similar to our zero argument constructor, except it's going to take in parameters. So we're going to take in a string name, I'm sorry, not name, init name. Init short for initial name. We're going to take an int for init energy, and we're going to take an int for init attack. Okay. Now what are we going to do? We're going to set name to init name. We're going to set energy to init energy, and we're going to set attack to init attack. All right, if you're a bit confused here, don't worry. Don't worry. This is just how we define the class. In the next video, I'm going to show exactly how this works. Okay. Now we have our toString method. How does toString work? We say public string toString parentheses, and down here we're going to return a string that contains the values of the instance variables of the object. And what are the instance variables of the object? Remember, it's name, energy, and attack. So I'm down here on the return. I'm going to return, oh, and it's also labeled. So I'm going to say name is the label plus name plus comma energy plus energy plus comma attack, and I'm gonna add attack to the end. So you can see here, this is our toString. It creates a string that contains the values of the instance variables, and it returns that string. Okay, so go ahead and type this code into your computers, and then in the next video I'm going to show you exactly how we can use this class to create objects in our program.